Welcome to the Total Boss Podcast, and I'm your host, Christiano Green, a podcast where we talk about finding fulfillment through self-development, being a leader of your own life, and getting the most out of it as well. Tenacity, originality, talent, authenticity, and being legendary. It's all about living your best life. Hello, all you total bosses out there, and welcome to another episode of the Total Boss Podcast. I am your host, Christiano Green, and I'm a mindset and relationship coach for both women and gay men. And so this week on the podcast, we're going to jump in and talk about obsessions. And we're going to talk about 10 signs that you know that you're obsessed with a guy that's probably a little bit more than a crush. Now, of course, it's healthy and it's normal to have a crush on someone, right? And it's exciting, when maybe you're single and, you see someone, someone, and you start, having a little bit of a crush, those kinds of feelings that come up. We all know kind of the feelings that I'm talking about. And, you start to think about them and you go, I find them attractive. They've got a good personality. So those kinds of things are normal, right? So I want us to realize that, having a crush is super, super normal. But when it gets to a point where it's an obsession, it kind of sometimes can take over your life a little bit. So obsessions are kind of like things where you're constantly thinking of the person, you're stalking them online, you're neglecting other areas of your life, right? And you're envisioning things to the point where, again, it's unhealthy. So let's talk about 10 different signs that you know that you're obsessed, and we'll go through them in a bit more detail as well. So number one is you neglect your self-care. So we all know that self-care is important, right? And self-care can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, it can be spiritual, it can be energetic, right? It can be self-care for our relationships with other people. And like I said, when we start to get obsessed over someone, we start, doing things specifically to be in their, environment, to try to impress them, to do all these other things, we find that our self-care gets neglected. And when we neglect our self-care, we're never going to be as good as we possibly can for ourselves, but certainly not for other people. So really what we need to work on is, what do I need to do in order to bring more self-care into my life? Because if I start to notice that my self-care is dropping, and maybe I'm, not doing some of the things that I like to do or things that are healthy for me, then maybe it's about figuring out, how can I bring that more in my life? Maybe I'm getting a little bit too obsessed over this person right now as well. The next sign that you know that you're obsessed with a guy is social media stalking. Now, we all know what this is. You follow someone on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and you go through all their photos, you go through all their comments, you go through and you figure out things like that. You kind of understand who they are, what they do, what they like to do, the photos that they go, and all of those things. And sometimes we start imagining and picturing ourselves in those photos or in those moments with those people because we want to get there. And even to the extreme, some of us can turn up at some of those places hoping we'll run into that person. Oh, you go here too? Oh, you go here too? Oh, I didn't know that. When in fact, you did know that because you were looking at all the places they visit frequently, and then you turn up, right? So look at it on that level. You look at it on that level, that sounds a bit crazy. That sounds a bit stalkerish, right? Which is why, obsessions can lead to stalking, right? That's a real thing. So we call it social media stalking because you basically are, right? I don't know how many times I've been, somewhere and I've overheard other, conversations from someone, or even someone's been telling me as a client, right? Where maybe they've been meeting this guy on Tinder, and they saw their Instagram is connected to Tinder or whatever, and then they go looking through all of the actual profiles that are following this person and telling me that, oh yeah, he's got all these girls following him, so he's a player. And so they start making up all these stories in their head about this person or whatever it is, right? So it can get to a place where it's really a bit cray-cray. And so we have to kind of understand that, if I want to get to know someone, if I want to build something with someone, I've got to also let it be natural. I can't go through and create a story of who this person is, because in reality, the likelihood of that story being true is pretty low, right? It's pretty low. The next sign that you might be a little bit obsessed is that you're waiting around all day for a text, right? Or a message or an email or whatever it is from the person. Maybe, you're going to go on a date with them or whatever, or you want to go on a date with them and you're trying to figure some things out and you're just waiting around hoping that you get a text, and every ding on your phone, you get so excited because you think it's that person. But in reality, oftentimes it's not, or they don't message us or whatnot, and we get frustrated. And so then sometimes we can, like I said, we can block all our plans out and not do anything because we're hoping that this one person's going to message us and ask us out on a date or do something like that, right? And I'm sure we can all relate to waiting around for a text from someone, hoping that we're going to have something done, on a date or whatever it is, right? So that's another sign there. Another sign is that you're constantly comparing. You're comparing yourself to that person. You're comparing that person to every other person that you've dated, or other people online, right? And sometimes, like I said, if we're comparing their online version to the reality, it can be very different. So we might be going, oh, look, this guy online is perfect. He's got, this perfect body. He looks like this. He does this. He's amazing. He does this, this, and this. He goes traveling and all of the things that we might say. But, comparing him to everyone else is a ridiculous game to play, because one, no two people are alike, and two, comparing people with different backgrounds and different upbringings and different lives, never gonna work out anywhere. So you've got to start to try to take people as they are. When people show you who they are, believe them. But if people aren't showing you who they are and you're kind of stalking and going investigating and going down that rabbit hole, you're going to start comparing them to something that's not true. So again, your online version, when you meet in reality, 9 times out of 10, 99 times more out of 100, they're not going to be the same version of what you've made them to be. So just let them be who they are. If something happens, you're going to go on a date with them or whatever, let them show you who they are. Don't go digging for it, right? Because again, people's paths are their paths. People's presence is a present. So become and understand that as well. It's important for us to go on that as well. The next one is that, ignoring red flags, right? So I don't know how many times, I speak to clients and they talk about, this guy that they want to date, or there's a guy on Tinder and they're talking about him and they're like, oh, he's this and this, but this is a problem. But you know what? That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And so people are ignoring the red flags, right? Sometimes we have these things that we have as what we call non-negotiables, or there are standards that we set for what we want to have in a relationship. And sometimes, those go out the windows when someone is interested in this, especially if we start to get obsessed over the person, because we think that we need to lower our standards or push things aside that maybe, are a red flag because we're interested in this person. So it's about understanding here, a red flag is a red flag for a reason. So if you're ignoring red flags, maybe you, like I said, are becoming a little bit obsessed with the person and the idea of the person, the idea of what you want it to be in your head. And oftentimes that will cause you to, like I said, ignore those red flags and move past some of the things that are probably going wrong here. That's not going to work out. And then maybe 3 or 4 months down the track, you go, oh my God, why didn't I see that in the first place? You beat yourself up over it. So you have to really understand that red flags are there for a reason. Don't overlook them. Don't walk past them. Let them be what they are, because that is what you're going to need for them to be for yourself as well. The next one is daydreaming 24/7. Now, I remember for myself years ago, to be honest, I used to be the biggest daydreamer. I was unhappy in my life. I was single, I didn't really have a lot of friends. And so I was creating a lot of daydreams, a lot of fantasies in my head. And it was fantasies about people who liked me and who loved me and, how I was this or that, right? And I would fantasize about a relationship with someone, and it would be all in my head. And I would create it in my mind to be true, to only then be let down constantly because it's not true, right? So if you're someone who's daydreaming and fantasizing about a specific person constantly, matter of fact, it's probably that you're obsessed. You're dreaming of the life that you want to have with them, or the fact that they love you and they see your worth and they see you, and then because they love you, you love yourself, right? The truth is, at the end of the day, the daydreaming is detrimental to your health mentally, physically, and emotionally as well. And we need to learn how to get back into reality and start focusing on how can I create a life that I want to have, but not daydream of stuff that's probably, not really where I'm at. I need to start creating the life I want to have instead of daydreaming of a life that's different to what I'm in right now. How can I create what I want in the life that I'm at, in the life that I'm living? How can I create the kind of relationship that I want? How can I create the kind of career that I want? How can I create the kind of, life that I want to have? How can I create the kind of joy that I want to have in my life? It's a constant thing that we have to think about, and it's awesome. It's really cool for us to be able to do that. So that's the next one, is that you're constantly daydreaming. How do I bring the daydream to reality and create the life that I really want to have? So I no longer need to live in the daydream world. I can live in the reality, right? So it's about figuring out, what do I need to do? What do I need to work on within myself to be able to get there? And that's a lot of the stuff that I do with my clients, is I help them bring those daydreams into reality by taking some actionable steps along the way, and also shifting beliefs. Because oftentimes, the reason we're daydreaming about it is because oftentimes we believe that we're not worthy or capable of ever having those things. So we dream about them as if they're, like I said, we're living a different life. We're living a completely different life. But the truth is that, if we can create that and learn how to change and shift our beliefs around, we bring that into this world here as well. So that's the next one. The next one is the old notion of the fixer-upper fantasy. You might see a guy, and like I said, you're a bit obsessed over him, but again, there's all these red flags. There's all of these problems that you see. And again, you're, in your mind, coming up with ways that you can fix a person, that they can change. And if they just change, then they'll be the perfect person, right? And that's a common thing that I get with so many clients, is that if my boyfriend was this, or my partner was this, or the guy I'm seeing was just this, he'd be perfect. Well, the truth is that he's not that, he's not that, he's not that. And you have to either learn to accept the person that he is and be with that person if that's what you really want, or you say, hey, look, he's not he's none of the things that I want him to be. So why do I need to fix him up to be that for me? Why don't I just try to find someone who's a bit more like the things that I need to have in my life? And that's where we go about it. It's like really trying to get away from the obsession and stepping into reality and really creating the kind of relationship that you want, by also doing the work on me. Because, hey, how do I become a match to the kind of relationship that I am? Oftentimes we want all of these things out of someone else, but we're not always willing to be the person that's going to be able to be that for someone else as well. So we have to also work on ourselves. We have to improve our life. And so instead of trying to fix someone else up, start focusing on fixing yourself and the wounds that you have, that you would allow someone to be with someone who needs to be fixed up, right? If you're sticking with someone there, then there's a problem with your self-worth and your self-esteem. And so for us, we need to work on what are those things that you're holding on to that you've yet to deal with, so that we can bring that into reality, find you the kind of guy that you deserve to have in your life as well. So the next thing is oftentimes when people get obsessed, they let their passions go by the wayside, right? So the things that they're enjoying with their hobbies, with their friendships, with all of the things. When we talk about our passions and our hobbies, you may no longer do them because you're so obsessed with this person that you trying to spend all your time with them, or trying to spend all your time getting them to see you and value you and ultimately love you as well. So really a tip is like, if you're noticing that you're obsessed, what are some of the hobbies that you like to do? How can you bring them back into your day-to-day life, so that you're noticing that, like I said, you're getting some of the stuff that you really deserve and need out of that as well? Because we all should be living our passions. We all should be living our desires, and we all should be turning those dreams into reality. Like for me, some of my biggest passions, playing tennis, going to the gym, going to the beach, right? Like I know these are small, they're not so crazy things, but I a lot of the time I put those to the wayside for other people. Friendships or relationships, right? Because I wanted, people to see me, to love me, to value me. But when I actually started to do that to myself, to see me, to love me, to value myself, I realized that I need to do more things that bring me joy. And playing tennis brought me joy. Going to the beach brought me joy. Going to the gym brought me joy. Doing all these other things that I do behind, changing my career and opening a coaching business, they all brought me joy, right? Having a podcast brings me joy. Sharing my message brings me joy. So I try to do more of those things on a daily basis, because it allows me to shine, me to feel full. But also, like I said, I'm focused on me. I'm not focused on anyone else. Of course, I focus on my partner, my relationship with my friends and my family and all of that, right? And my clients. But what I'm saying is, it starts from me. And I create my life around what I want to do, and then fill in the blanks across the path as well. So that's the next one as well. The next one is kind of something I just touched on as well, is that when we have, like I said, friendships, oftentimes when we get obsessed with a guy, we might let those friendships dwindle by. We've all probably either been the person or we've had a friend who just goes, AWOL when they've met a guy. They get obsessed with the guy, they spend all their time with him, and you're kind of like, left to the wayside, basically. Or you might have done the same to your friendships as well. I know that I could count many friends that have done that, right? It's a common thing. I haven't done that because I only had the one relationship, and when I started that relationship, I was in a much better place. So no, I didn't do that myself, thank God. But I probably would have if it was 5-10 years ago. I would have probably dropped everything because I really wanted a relationship. I was looking for love so badly, right? Because I wasn't loving myself. And that's what I needed from someone else. So yes, I can see how people get to that place. So really, if you're noticing that you're getting obsessed and you're like, oh my God, I'm at a place too obsessed with this, start to reconnect with your friends, your family, those relationships that you have put to the wayside, and say, you know what, I need to put more energy where people are already loving me and showing me this and spending time and care about me, right? One person does not, kick off the other 10, 20, 30 people that you have in your life that are important to you. So you've got to really understand that. And so focus on that as well. Like this thing here, if you want it to spend some time on having it blossom, do it. But don't neglect all this here, because the obsession over here may only be for X time. And some of these people may not want you back in their life, because that's, sometimes been the case, is that, you know what, you only want me when it's good for you and convenient for you. And some people just say, too bad, honey. If you don't want to be there for me when I need you as well as when you need me, it's not a two-way street. So we've got to really understand that as well. And that's something common that so many people do out there as well. And then the final one is we notice that communication, especially around our feelings, tends to go ba-bow when we are obsessed with the guy. We don't necessarily communicate effectively to the person. We kind of let everything slide, and we don't necessarily speak our truth about how we feel or what's going on. And like I said, I'll ignore the red flags and just kind of move on. And so if we're noticing at a point where there's important things that we're bottling up, remember, things bottle up until they reach a boiling point, and then boom, people go crazy. So if you're noticing that you're lacking in the communication with this person, you're struggling to actually be able to be honest and speak your truth to them, it's probably noted that there's a little bit of an obsession, and you're afraid to say the truth, because if you say the truth, it might mean X, Y, Z. It might mean that they leave you. It might mean that they don't like you anymore. It might mean that they, think you're annoying or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if someone truly cares about you and truly loves you or truly sees your worth, you speaking your truth honestly and coming from a place of love and sharing that, no one's gonna, neglect that or push it to the wayside. So you have to be really aware that, in order for us to really get over the obsessions, we need to learn how to communicate ourselves better. Now, you might be struggling going, bloody hell, there's all these 10 signs. There's 10 signs that I know that I am obsessed with someone. I'm neglecting my self-care. I'm stalking people. I'm waiting around for their texts. I'm, comparing myself or them to everyone else. I'm ignoring red flags. I'm daydreaming 24/7. I'm, fantasizing about fixing them up, right? I'm forcing, myself to not focus on my passions. I'm letting my friendships slide, and, I'm not communicating properly. So how do I get over that there? Great question to ask. And I've just launched something that's brand new last week that I think is going to be super helpful. So I'm going to share a link below, but it's called the 7-Day Love Reboot online course. And it literally is designed to help you get over your obsession. So if you're obsessed with a guy right now, it could be a guy that you're dating, it could be an ex, it could be some guy online or on Instagram or OnlyFans, it could be a straight guy, right? Whatever it is, if you're obsessed with someone and you don't know how to get over it, or you're struggling to get over it, come check out the 7-Day Love Reboot and go on a 7-day journey of how you can easily and effectively, in a very quick fashion, get over that guy so that you can get back on with your life, and then focus on finding the kind of guy that really, really, really is going to add some love and value into your life. So I'll link that below for you. But otherwise, those are the 10 signs that you're obsessed. So I want to hear from you. Which one do you think's most like you when you get to a place of, too much, obsession over someone? Which ones do you? Share that below. Maybe share a story as well. Or you can reach out to me, of course, privately on social media if you're not, confident enough to share the story below. But seriously, reach out, let me know, because I want to hear from you about which ones of these 10 signs that really suits probably your personality the most, because then I can give you some extra tips on how we can really work on getting over that as well. All right, legends, thank you so much for your time today. I love having a voice and sharing this on the podcast with you. I'm going to be back next week with a brand new episode of the Total Boss Podcast. But until then, always remember that you've got this and I've got you.